Merhaba. Değerli katılımcılar, Türkiye Döngüsel Ekonomi Haftası'nın 3. ve son gününe hoş geldiniz. Hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum. Açılış konuşmalarını yapmak üzere TÜSİAD bu Gençlikte İş Var Çalışma Grubu Başkanı Sayın Zeynep Köksal Yaykıran'ı kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Sayın Büyükelçi Hämäläinen, Sayın Mukim Temsilci Vinton, Sayın Müsteşar Vimpari, saygıdeğer konuklar. Hedefler için İş Dünyası Platformu, D-Cube ve SKD Türkiye tarafından bu sene üçüncüsü gerçekleştirilen Türkiye Döngüsel Ekonomi Haftası'nın Ankara bölümüne hepiniz hoş geldiniz. TÜSİAD, Türkonfet ve UNDP işbirliğinde 2019 yılında Hedefler için İş Dünyası platformunu kurduk. Bu değerli etkinliğe TÜSİAD olarak katkı sunmaktan ve bugün sizleri Ankara temsilciliğimizde ağırlamaktan büyük bir mutluluk ve onur duyuyoruz. Etkinliğimize katkıları için Finlandiya Büyükelçiliğine ve Business Finland'a teşekkür ederiz. Saygıdeğer misafirler, günümüzde yeşil dönüşüm ve sürdürülebilirlik olguları tüm stratejik ve sektörel değerlendirmelerde kilit bir rol oynuyor. Ekosistem üzerinde yarattığı etkilerin ulaştığı seviyeyi dikkate alarak alışılagelmiş üretim ve tüketim kalıplarımızı gözden geçirmemiz gerekiyor. Yeşil ve dijital ekonomi yaklaşımını ve ticari ilişkileri bu unsurlar üzerinden şekillendiren birçok düzenleme ile karşı karşıyayız. Paris Anlaşması, Avrupa Yeşil Mutabakatı, enflasyon azaltma yasası bunlardan sadece birkaçı. TÜSİAD olarak biz de yeşil dönüşümü ve çevresel sürdürülebilirliğin sağlanmasını ana gündem maddelerimizden biri olarak tanımlıyoruz. TÜSİAD'ın 50. kuruluş yıl dönümü için hazırladığımız yeni bir anlayışla geleceği inşa raporunda ülkemizin kalkınmasının ana unsurlarından birini çevreci bir Türkiye olarak belirledik. Değerli konuklar, sürdürülebilir kalkınma ve yeşil dönüşüm sürecinin en önemli bileşenlerinden birini döngüsellik prensibi oluşturuyor. Doğal kaynaklarımız kısıtlı. Döngüsellik boşluğu raporuna göre 2020 yılında %8.6 olan küresel ekonominin döngüsellik oranı 2023 yılında %7.2'ye geriledi. Döngüselliğin sağlanması için sürdürülebilir, kapsayıcı ve yenilikçi politikalar oluşturulması ve iş yapma modellerinin her aşamasında ekosistemi koruma prensibiyle hareket edilmesi gerekiyor. Döngüsellik anlayışıyla şekillenen yeniden üretimden tasarım ve onarıma, yeniden kullanımdan geri dönüştürülmüş içeriğin arttırılmasına kadar bir dizi faaliyet çevresel, sosyal ve ekonomik faydayı beraberinde getiriyor. Döngüsel ekonomi yeni istihdam fırsatları yaratmakla kalmıyor. Üretimin katma değerinin artmasını da sağlıyor. Döngüsel ekonominin 2030 yılına kadar 4,5 trilyon dolarlık bir küresel büyüme sağlayabileceği öngörülüyor. Saygıdeğer misafirler, Avrupa Yeşil Mutabakatı başta olmak üzere döngüsel ekonomi özelinde küresel gelişmelerin ülkemize etkilerinin vakitlice ele alınması, ortaya çıkacak fırsatların ise dikkatle değerlendirilmesi önümüzdeki süreçte önem arz ediyor. TÜSİAD olarak hem bu düzenlemeleri hem de üyesi olduğumuz Avrupa İş Dünyası Kuruluşu, Business Europe bünyesindeki çalışmaları yakından takip ediyor ve aktif katkı sunuyoruz. Değerli konuklarımız, döngüsellik prensibinin içselleştirilmesi ilgili tüm paydaşların etkili işbirliğine de ihtiyaç duyuyor. Kurulduğu ilk günden bu yana parçası olduğumuz Hedefler için İş Dünyası platformu tüm paydaşlarını sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçlarını gözeterek çalışma ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma perspektifiyle hareket etme konusunda adımlar atmaya teşvik ediyor. Bu oluşum çerçevesinde 3 senedir memnuniyetle katkı verdiğimiz Türkiye Döngüsel Ekonomi Haftası Türkiye Döngüsel Ekonomi Haftası kritik önemde gördüğümüz çevre ve döngüsellik konularını derinlemesine ele aldığımız önemli bir platform yaratıyor. Türkiye Döngüsel Ekonomi Haftası kapsamında ele alınan etkinliklerin bu yakın diyaloğu daha da arttıracağına ve etkin kılacağına inanıyoruz. Bu değerli organizasyonda bizleri buluşturdukları için Hedefler İçin İş Dünyası platformu, SKD Türkiye ve D-Cube'a bir kez daha teşekkür ediyor, saygılarımı sunuyorum.
Zeynep Hanım'a konuşmalar için teşekkür ediyoruz. Avrupa Birliği Yeşil Mutabakatı, SKDM Geçiş Süreci ve Döngüsel Ekonomi Düzenlemelerinde güncel konular üzerine konuşmaları için Avrupa Birliği Türkiye Delegasyonu, Yeşil Kalkınma ve Kapsayıcı Büyüme Bölüm Başkanı Sayın Müsteşar Virve Vimpari'yi kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Saygıdeğer Finlandia Büyükelçisi Pirkko Hämäläinen, saygıdeğer Birleşmiş Milletleri Kalkınma Program temsilcileri Luisa Vinton, saygıdeğer hanımefendiler, beyefendiler. Aslında bir ay önce bu göreve geçtim ve ondan sonra bütün konuşmaları Türkçe'de yapmak karar verdim. Fakat bugünkü konumuz o kadar teknik ve zor olduğu için İngilizce devam edeceğim. So, dear participants, I'm very happy to join you here today on the third day of the third Circular Economy Week of Turkey, an organization that our delegation has been following with interest since the beginning, especially because it's an initiative largely owned by the private sector and civil society organizations, which is very important for us. And this should not be surprising. There's a clear business case for individual companies in circular economy, particularly taking into account supply disruptions and challenges in global economy. Hence, I want to say to all enterprises joining the Circular Economy Week today, physically and online, you are in the right address for making business. Our ambassador participated at the last event in March 2022, and I've been asked to give an update on what happened since then on the EU Green Deal, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, and the Circular Economy Action Plan. And I ask for your apology from now because it's going to be a bit of a long speech because actually showing how much is happening in these fields since then. As you know, the EU Green Deal is an ambitious economic growth agenda, and despite many challenges, such as the slowdown in the European economy and the negative impact of Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, this agenda kept moving forward. On 16 March 2022, right after the Circular Economy Week of last year, the Commission has proposed the Net Zero Industry Act. This is a framework of actions supporting decarbonization of the industry by creating the most favorable environment for the development of technologies like wind turbines, heat pumps, solar panels, renewable hydrogen, as well as CO2 storage. This is currently under discussion in the Parliament. On the same day, the Critical Raw Materials Act was also proposed. Critical raw materials are indispensable for a wide set of strategic sectors, including the net zero industry, the digital industry, aerospace, and defense sectors. The aim of the Act is to mitigate the risks for supply chains which depend on the strategic raw materials and to enhance the EU's economic resilience. An important aspect of the Act for the Circular Economy Week is the requirement on circularity. Member states will need to adopt and implement national measures to improve the collection of critical raw materials, reach waste, and ensure its recycling into secondary critical raw materials. Both acts are expected to be adopted this year. Last year in November, the Commission also proposed a revision of the packaging and packaging waste regulation to reverse the trend of constantly growing source of waste. For the industry, this will create new business opportunities, especially for smaller companies, decrease the need for virgin materials, boosting Europe's recycling capacity, as well as making Europe less dependent on the primary resources and external suppliers to put the packaging sector on track for the climate neutrality by 2050. Another important proposal in March this year was the right to repair proposal, which sets common rules promoting the repair of goods. The proposal will make it easier and more cost-effective for consumers to repair as opposed to replace goods. This will also boost the repair sector while incentivizing producers and sellers to develop more sustainable business models. Dear participants, we have also had a proposal to prevent greenwashing by regulating environmental labels. A Commission study from 2020 found that 53% of the claims examined were vague, misleading, or unfounded, and 40% were completely unsubstantiated. Companies would need to substantiate their claims according to the directive on new rules on substantiating green claims. There were also several other initiatives tabled or adopted since last year regarding transportation, alternative fuels, joint purchase of gas, revision of energy labeling, and sustainable use of soil. Another important EU proposal this year was on improving design and end-of-life management of cars for more resource-efficient automotive sector. It is projected that automotive sector will become the largest consumer of critical raw materials used in permanent magnets of e-drive motors in Europe. The EU wants to set circularity requirements for vehicles. For example, car makers will need to provide clear, detailed instructions for dismantlers on how to replace and remove parts and components during use and end-of-life stage of the vehicle. They will have to use recycled content. 25% of the plastic used to build a new vehicle will be required to come from recycling, of which 25% must be recycled from end-of-life vehicles. Meanwhile, the EU Circular Economy Action Plan has continued implementation with new initiatives. In fact, the right to repair and green claims proposals were under this plan. They were followed by several initiatives on microplastics. As part of this plan, the Commission has revised its monitoring framework on circular economy in May 2023 in order to better track the progress. Another keystone of the plan, the new Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, was under public consultation until May 2023. It is planned for adoption in 2024. This regulation will introduce digital product passports providing information about products' environmental sustainability. Most importantly, the European Council adopted 5 laws that were under discussion in April this year, which are all key to implement the EU's Fit for 55 package, hence very instrumental for the Green Deal. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the carbon border adjustment mechanism has already entered into force as of 1st of October this year, with the first reporting period for importers ending on 31st January 2024. In this transitional phase, CBAM will only apply to imports of cement, iron and steel, aluminium, fertilizers, electricity and hydrogen. EU importers of those goods will have to report on the volume of their imports and the greenhouse gas emissions embedded during their production. There is no payment of financial adjustment at this stage. Once the permanent system enters into force on 1st January 2026, importers will need to declare each year the quantity of goods imported into the EU in the preceding year and their embedded GHG. They will then surrender the corresponding number of CBAM certificates. There's a wealth of information, guidelines, and sector-specific fact sheets on the Commission's website for CBAM, which I advise you to get familiar with. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I know that the Turkish private sector has concerns on CBAM. I also know that the Turkish Ministry of Trade follows up the process very closely, and they are in regular contact with our Trade and Economy section and DG Trade in Brussels. This is, of course, not surprising. Turkish companies are highly integrated with the European supply chains. This integration is very visible in sectors as manufacturing, automotive, and textiles. Our bilateral trade volume has reached more than 198 billion euros in 2022, despite global challenges. The customs union was instrumental in this. Since its entry into force, the value of our bilateral trades has increased more than 4-fold. The purpose of CBAM's transitional period is to collect information and allow different actors to become familiar with their respective roles in the implementation of CBAM. This will be followed by the finalization of the methodology to be applied in the definitive phase of CBAM. There will be a public consultation on the draft final methodology for the definitive phase of CBAM, where Turkish stakeholders can also participate in addition to the continuing dialogue between the European Commission and the Turkish Ministry of Trade. Dear participants, the EU is committed to cooperate with Turkey in its decarbonization journey, and we have been providing important financial support to the country in the area of environment so far. In the environment and climate change sector, the IPA grant funding has already reached 1.6 billion euros since 2002. These projects have addressed climate mitigation, adaptation, nature conservation, abatement of pollution, better and more effective water and waste management. Under IPA 3 program, some 80 million euros is set aside for environment and climate action for the time being. We are directly supporting Turkey for its transition to circular economy through undertaking the initial assessment of its potential and paving the way towards circularity. We are also trying to help build capacity of Turkish actors regarding novel concepts such as end of waste and innovative waste management through our IPA support. Furthermore, we have envelopes of support for energy, transport, agriculture and competitiveness, which can be used for green transformation objectives. As you well know, Turkey can also benefit from the EU program Horizon Europe, which provides important research and development support to the private sector for the priorities of green transition. There's also a new pipeline of support, which will work as guarantee facility for private sector investments under the European Fund for Sustainable Development Plus program. Turkey investment platform established for this purpose is operational now. International financing institutions have already started preparing their pipelines. And I'm coming to the end of my speech, which must make you very happy. And before ending my speech, I would like to really underline the message that we are now looking forward to seeing Turkey's next steps on the climate law, emission trading system, and circular economy action plan in order to join our forces for the common agenda of green transition. Teşekkürler.
Sayın Müsteşar'a teşekkürlerimizi sunuyoruz. Küresel sürdürülebilirlik gündemi ve döngüsel ekonomi ilişkisi hususunda konuşmalarını yapmak üzere UNDP Türkiye Mukim Temsilcisi Luisa Vinton'u kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Thank you very much, and I'm so impressed by Virve Hanım that best I can do is Hoş Geldiniz. So on behalf of the United Nations Development Program, it's really a pleasure to be here today with you and through the Business for Goals platform and together with our partners, whom we thank very much, particularly our Finnish ambassador and Finland for the cooperation, but also TÜSİAD and DCube and SKD. For this third Circular Economy Week. We're very pleased to be part of this, to be a supporter, and this has been a flagship event for the Business for Goals platform from the very beginning, so we're proud organizers and participants today. This is the last day of a 3-day extravaganza of topics, and I just wanted to note the rich agenda of discussions that have already taken place. Virve was very modest in assuming that we would be bored by her presentation, but I have to say I love the concreteness of what the EU is doing, and it helps to think here, I think, about what steps are ahead in areas like recycling automobiles and other things. So I appreciate very much that presentation, but there have also been similar presentations on green industrial parks and what's coming up ahead at COP28, the next climate summit in Dubai, on decarbonizing manufacturing, on a host of quite specific topics, but ones that are very relevant to the task that we face in ensuring that we have a green future. And I also wanted to point to the participation across sectors of government representatives, of the private sector, and also of academia and civil society. I think this is indicative of the partnerships that will be required and the commitment of all sectors that will be necessary if we're to achieve the goals of the circular economy. And we've already seen, I think, in Turkey, lots of corporate creativity in response to impulses like the EU Green Deal and this terrifying upcoming CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which now has started in a very gentle fashion, but soon will have teeth. And I know many Turkish manufacturers have been thinking about this for a long time. I had the pleasure of visiting Kale Ceramic, the Kale Group ceramic production facility, and had a presentation by the Research and Development Department there. And they are focused on, they have basically two ingredients in their product, clay and heat. And their concern was, how do you then, sort of reduce the carbon footprint of this endeavor? How do you introduce circular economy principles into production? And they had lots of ingenious ways of preserving heat for reuse and multiple use, which was a new concept for me. So I think there is huge creativity in Turkish industry. We know Turkish economy, Turkish private sector that will come in handy in adapting to EU import rules, but also to upcoming, as Virve said, government policies that have been put in place or are now coming in the form of the climate law and the Green Deal Action Plan and other impulses. And we also see a lot of positive energy, I think, here. You may know that the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted a resolution last December on zero waste, partly at the initiative of the First Lady, and the 30th of March has been declared International Day of Zero Waste. So zero waste, I think, is a very easy concept for people to understand, or a gateway, let's say, to the circular economy concept. So we see some positive energy coming from Turkey as well. At UNDP, we're very much committed to all things green, not just the circular economy, but also the climate agenda. And really, green is in our DNA, and our DNA is the SDGs. We have lots of acronyms, but the Sustainable Development Goals, I think circular economy echoes through all of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly number 12 for sustainable consumption. So very much our focus here, as in every country in the world, is on circular economy, green economy, and the climate promise. Here we have many programs and projects that are oriented very specifically in some ways and more broadly in other ways to this agenda. And we do see that zero waste is a very strong rallying cry for community activity, but we are working also with private sector. For example, in Izmir, we're working together with the Regional Development Agency on the industrial symbiosis of taking one industry's waste and turning it into a natural resource or production resource for other sectors or companies. And we're trying to apply this principle much more broadly. So even in the response to the devastating earthquakes that took place this year in the south and southeast, we see potential in recycling the earthquake debris. And we know from at least the theoretical perspective, we have huge amounts of waste of debris from the large number of collapsed buildings. So cement, steel, and other debris, that in theory up to 90% of that debris can be recycled. Japan managed to recycle 81% of the debris that resulted from its 2011 earthquake and tsunami. But also in reconstruction, to apply the principles to build back better, for example, trying to use wood as a raw material for household construction, rather than always assuming that it needs to be cement and other less recyclable products. We're also trying to make an analytical case for circular economy and the green economy more broadly. I think it's already been said that there is a business case for circular economy and I think we'll hear also from Madam Ambassador on this score, that circular economy for businesses should not be thought of simply as a cost or even solely as a cost, but more as a win-win solution. We know that circular economy and green economy in general are job creating. This is our theme everywhere we go, is it's not a cost, it's an investment in new and better jobs. A study we did here in Turkey last June, together with the International Labour Organization, showed that Turkey could increase its GDP by as much as $8 billion a year and create more than 300,000 new jobs by 2030 simply by shifting investment from fossil fuels into renewables. So politically more difficult concept, but analytically at least the case is there for much more pro-growth understanding of green policies. But unfortunately, we see here, as I think everywhere in the world, we are still losing ground in terms of circularity. At least by the UNDP index, we are going down in the circularity of materials rather than up, going in the wrong direction. We're using more virgin materials and becoming more wasteful. So here too, I wanted to just spend a little time addressing what I think is maybe the elephant in the room, or one elephant in the room, which is that I think climate change is the biggest circular economy challenge. And circular economy helps to reduce carbon emissions, that's clear, so it helps to pursue the goals we see in the climate struggle. But if we treat it head on, perhaps that's the best contribution we can make to circular economy and indeed to the survival of the planet, is not to touch natural resources at all and to leave them in the ground so that they don't have to, we don't face the challenge of recycling them. And I do think all the investment we make into circular economy could be wasted if we don't tackle the climate challenge head on fast enough. So I wanted to address just 3 points to the reality of the situation. That I think the overarching theme of this year's Circular Economy Week was call to action. So this is from UNDP, a very clear call to action on the climate challenge. And first of all, it's getting really hot. So I think you've probably seen the reporting in the last couple of days that September was the hottest September ever. You know that July was the hottest month ever of any month in the history of the world, so that's in the history of 120,000 years, a long time to have the hottest day. We already have a string of I think it's 38 days now in the calendar year that have been above this 1.5 degrees centigrade threshold that we're not supposed to cross, or we will have very, very dire consequences. So that's supposed to be somewhere in the future, and we're working to prevent that increase. But if already for a month of a year we are above it, then it's clearly a danger sign. And with the higher temperatures, as you know, we get more and more extreme weather-driven disasters. And 75% of those, according to UNDP's calculations, are due directly to the impact of higher emissions and climate change. And what's more is it's not just that we're seeing more disasters, that we're seeing them more frequently, and with not just more disasters, but they're more violent, and they come in unprecedented shapes and forms. So it's becoming harder and harder to prepare. So even if we have a very, very strong adaptation agenda, if we want to get ready for climate change, and the biggest impact of climate change is extreme weather events, it's getting harder and harder to do that, because we're seeing people standing there and saying, we've never had forest fires here, we've never had a flood in this river basin. So it's getting to be a tougher world to deal with on the front, simply with temperatures rising. The second point, on emissions, we're going backwards instead of forwards. And so this is due to our addiction, or our dependence on fossil fuels, but I think we can classify it as an addiction. Fossil fuels account for 90% of emissions. We have 151 countries in the world that have made net zero promises, including Turkey, which says 2053. As you know, most countries are 2050. But, and the study just came out from UNEP, and I really encourage you to have a look at it. It's normally UNEP tracks emissions. Now they're tracking production of fossil fuels. And what they're seeing is that the world's 20 largest producers of fossil fuels are on track to produce more than double, 110% more than what would be needed to stay at this 1.5 degrees ceiling by 2030. So we're not only that we're not going down, but we're continuing to rise. 17 of those 20 producers have net zero goals. But it's really, I think it's, the title of this study is Phasing Down or Phasing Up, ? And you'll all remember in Glasgow, there was a big debate. Are we going to phase down coal or phase out? So the environmentalists, the Secretary General of the UN went in hoping to have a promise from the world's countries to phase out of coal entirely very, very quickly. And the best that could come out of Glasgow was a promise to phase down. But But now we're phasing up in reality. And if you look at the forecast, this is just the 20 biggest producers. We're on track to produce 460% more coal, 82% more gas, and 29% more oil than would be in line with this 1.5 degree increase. So that's not good. And there are still huge government subsidies going to fossil fuel extraction. So the IMF says last year fossil fuel subsidies amounted to $7 trillion, or 71% of global GDP. And that's a $2 trillion increase since 2020. So again, that's going the wrong direction as well. And one analyst was noting that this is more than what the world spends on education in a year. So we're spending more on subsidies to dig up fossil fuels to create more emissions, and less than that on education. So anyway, you can understand, I think, why the Secretary General of the UN, who has a lot on his mind now, is pushing so hard for the COP28 coming up at the end of this month and the beginning of December, for countries to come up with credible commitments as opposed to simply net zero promises. Because the evidence, looking at not just emissions going up, but the plans for the production and sale of fossil fuels are also going very much starkly in the wrong direction. So my third point then is it's clear, I think, that we can't rely on governments alone in this process, in the UN process, that we hope that governments will see the evidence and come up with more credible NDCs. But how's it going with the private sector? And here I think this is very relevant to the discussions today. Are things any better with private sector companies? So if you look at the Forbes 2000 index, which are the world's 2,000 biggest listed companies, so the good news is that half, or a little more than half, 1,003 of those, have made a net zero pledge. They have a plan to go carbon neutral. But only 4%, so it's a very small margin, meet the UN Race to Zero guidelines for what constitutes a credible pledge. So a lot of work to be done, and a lot of kind of horror movie, to me, style news in the headline. But this, I think, is why we have call to action as the overarching theme of our Circular Economy Week, is that, yes, circular economy, very important, but please, fossil fuels, leave them in the ground. Good to recycle plastic, better not to make it at all. And then more broadly, and more seriously, that really we do need bolder action, not just by governments, but by private sector, by civil society, by local governments also. More credible plans, not just intentions, but real actions. And a greater sharing of what does work. So we heard from Virve lots of really concrete policy initiatives that will have results and will change reality. And I think we'll hear also from Madam Ambassador about Finland. So we see good examples. It's not all bad, and I don't like to be a doomsayer, but I think it is a time to wake up. There are pockets of progress everywhere, but they're few and far between. So I think the faster we can recognize and adopt good policies, the better. I think we heard a lot of examples of good actions by companies and by sectors over the past 2 days, and we will hear today. But it's very important, I think, to realize the scale of the challenge, the urgency of the need, and then to celebrate those companies, sectors, leaders that are paving a path that will help us to turn these trends around and not make it such a horror story to contemplate green issues, the circular economy, or the climate challenge in general. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you for our organizers.
Sayın Mukim temsilciye teşekkürlerimizi sunuyoruz. Türkiye'nin döngüsel ekonomiye geçiş sürecinde Finlandiya ile işbirliği fırsatları konusundaki konuşmalarını yapmak üzere Finlandiya Türkiye Büyükelçisi Sayın Pirkko Hämäläinen'i kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Thank you. It's really great to be here, and as a new ambassador of Finland, this would be the best possible way to start my time here in Turkey to be part of Circular Economy Week here in Ankara. And really it gives me a great pleasure to share some thoughts and share some practices we have already between our two countries. And Finland is a strategic partner for the Circular Economy Week, Turkey, for the second time in a row. And last time in March 2022, yes, this is the first, don't go further. This is the first slide we want to show you, so you can get acquainted with while I'm telling you a little bit the background. So last time in March 2022, we ended the week with the call to action. We agreed that we would talk about what we have achieved in our collaborations at the next edition of the Circular Economy Week. Here we are. The moment of truth is upon us. And I'm going to be very concrete, so like Virve. And I must say that the previous speakers really put it nicely. First, the opportunities which has been brought to all of us, and then the reality where we are and how to go forward, what we should do. So it's a good basis for then concrete actions. Since the previous edition of the Circular Economy Week Turkey, we have seen a number of visits between Finland and Turkey. This ranges from the ministerial business delegations to technical delegations and company visits over the last 18 months. Our colleagues were particularly excited to host a visiting group of Turkish industry leaders from the Istanbul Chamber of Industry during the World Circular Economy Forum in Helsinki last June. And this slide 1 here are some pictures from the visits during that week. As you can see, we have a hands-on approach to our collaboration and joint efforts. You might even spot some familiar faces there. During this week, we have discussed how Finland is currently constructing a Green Deal for the circular economy that brings together key ministries, businesses, organizations, experts and scientists to collaborate towards the common goals. We are eager to share this collaborative approach in our Finnish-Turkish partnership and joint efforts on circular economy and carbon neutrality. Then we now could have a slide number 2. One practical example is the Uşak and Paimio town twinning project collaborating for sustainable future, accelerating green transition of textile sector through partnerships. The town twinning project gives the partners an opportunity to learn from each other's approach and ways of working. This will be done through field visits, comparative studies, and joint events in both cities. I look forward to visiting Uşak soon and being part of this project. Well, not maybe totally part, but at least see activities and get acquainted with them. As we have heard throughout the week, the circular economy needs new kind of collaboration, and particularly the textile circular economy is showing the future way to work together. Turkey is a top 3 exporter ready-made clothing and apparel to the EU. The knowledge exchange taking place through this project will encourage the future innovation in the industry. The town twinning project between Uşak and Paimio on accelerating green transition of the textile sector is a great example, and we wish to see many more such collaborations to come. As another example, just last week, Business Finland and TÜSİAD opened a joint call for collaborative Finnish-Turkish R&D projects in sustainable production methods in textile and automotive sectors. Participants from Turkey and Finland are invited to submit joint R&D and innovation project proposals with a strong market potential aiming to produce a new product, increase product quality or standards, develop new techniques to reduce costs and increase standards, and develop new production technologies. There must be at least one industrial enterprise from Turkey and one industrial enterprise from Finland in a joint project. Universities and research centers or institutes can participate in project consortia together with industrial enterprises according to the rules specified in the call. The aim of the call is to allow partners to collaborate internationally and gain access to new environments, facilities, knowledge and expertise in order to enhance the quality of their research and enable them to translate research and innovation into economic and societal benefit. The call is open until February 16 next year, so now is time to act. These two cases are prime examples of the tools that are in place between our two countries to work together on circular economy transition. And in our next slide, together with Business Finland office in Istanbul, our embassy is here to help boost the business relations and circular economy agenda between Finland and Turkey. Here you can see our Team Finland-Turkey members from the embassy in Ankara and Business Finland in Istanbul. So let's work together. With this, I wish that the positive vibe from this week translates into more collaboration and action, and also we can tackle the climate change and we can make a really change when it comes to the big questions that we are now facing in the world. So thank you.